Hey everybody, hope you had a great weekend. Welcome back to Monday morning. Today's Stuart Little chapter is chapter 9. It's called the automobile. What's a word for an automobile? It's another word for a car. For 3 days, everybody hunted all over the house for Margalo without finding so much as a feather. Oh, that's right, she left, remember? I guess she had spring fever, said George. A normal bird doesn't stay indoors in this kind of weather. Well, perhaps she has a husband somewhere, and she's gone to meet him, suggested Mr. Little. She has not, sobbed Stuart bitterly. That's just a lot of nonsense. How do you know? Asked George. Because I asked her one time, cried Stuart, and she told me she was a single bird. Everybody questioned Snowball closely, but the cat insisted he knew nothing about Margalo's disappearance. I don't see why you have to make a para out of me just because that disagreeable little chippy flew the coop, said Snowball irritably. Stuart was heartbroken. He had no appetite. He refused food and lost weight. Finally, he decided he would run away from home without telling anyone and go out into the world and look for Margalo. While I'm at it, I might as well seek my fortune too, he thought. Before daybreak the next morning, he got out his biggest handkerchief, and in it he placed his toothbrush, his money, his soap, his comb, his brush, a clean suit of underwear, and his pocket compass. I ought to take something to remember my mother by, he thought, so he crept into his mother's bedroom where she was still asleep. He climbed the lamp cord up to her bureau, and he pulled a strand of Mrs. Little's hair from her comb. He rolled the hair up neatly and laid it in the handkerchief with the other things. Then he rolled everything up into a bundle, and he tied it onto one end of a wooden match. And here's the picture of him and his little handkerchief, and you can see all the things he's collected that he's going to take with him there. With his gray felt hat cocked jauntily on one side of his head and his pack slung across his shoulder, Stuart stole softly out of the house. And here's a picture of him pulling one of his mom's hairs out of her comb. And then here's a picture of him out on the sidewalk as he's leaving. I wonder how far he's going to get. Goodbye, beautiful home, he whispered. I wonder if I'll ever see you again. Stuart stood uncertainly for a moment in the street in front of the house. The world was a big place in which to go looking for a lost bird. North, south, east, or west. Which way should he go? Stuart decided he needed some advice on such an important matter, so he started uptown to find his friend Dr. Carey, the surgeon dentist, the owner of the schooner Wasp. The doctor was glad to see Stuart. He took him right into his inner office, where he was busy pulling a man's tooth. The man's name was Edward Clydesdale, and he had several wads of gauze tucked in his cheek to hold his mouth open good and wide. The tooth was a hard one to get out, and the doctor let Stuart sit on his instrument tray so that they could talk during the operation. This is my friend, Stuart Little, he said to the man with the gauze in his cheek. How do you do, sir? Replied the man, as best as he could. Very well, thank you, replied Stuart. Well, what's on your mind, Stuart? Asked Dr. Carey, seizing hold of the man's tooth with a pair of pincers and giving it a strong pull. And there's the doctor with the man with all the gauze in his mouth and Stuart sitting on the tray. I ran away from home this morning, explained Stuart. I'm going out into the world to seek my fortune and to look for a lost bird. Which direction do you think I should start out in? Dr. Carey twisted the tooth a little bit and rocked it back and forth. What color is the bird? He asked. Brown, said Stuart. You better go north, said Dr. Carey. Don't you think so, Mr. Clydesdale? Oak and Central Park, said Mr. Clydesdale. What? Cried Stuart. I hey, Oak and Central Park, said Mr. Clydesdale. He's saying look in Central Park, explained Dr. Carey, taking another big wad of gauze into Mr. Clydesdale's cheek. That's a good suggestion. Oftentimes people with decaying teeth have good sound ideas. Central Park is a favorite place for birds in the spring. Mr. Clydesdale was nodding his head vigorously, and he seemed about to speak again. If Udon, okay, and Harold Hart, hate and Ork, and Avon, and Harvard Elway, and in Connecticut. What? Cried Stuart, delighted at this new kind of talk. What did you say, Mr. Clydesdale? If okay, and Errol Ark, and Avon, and Harvard Elway, and in Connecticut. He says, if you can't locate the bird in Central Park, take a New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad train and look in Connecticut, said Dr. Carey. And then he removed the rolls of gauze from Mr. Clydesdale's mouth. Rinse, please, he said. Mr. Clydesdale took a glass of mouthwash that was beside the chair and rinsed his mouth out. Tell me this, Stuart, said Dr. Carey. How are you traveling? On foot? Yes, sir, said Stuart. Well, I think you better have a car. As soon as I get this tooth out, we'll see what can be done about it. Open, please, Mr. Clydesdale. Dr. Carey grabbed the tooth with the pincers again, and this time he pulled so long and so hard and with such determination that the tooth popped out, which was a great relief to everybody, particularly to Mr. Clydesdale. The doctor then led Stuart into another room. From a shelf, he took a tiny little automobile about 6 inches long. It was the most perfect miniature automobile Stuart had ever seen. It was bright yellow with black fenders, a streamlined car of graceful design. I made this myself, Dr. Carey said. I enjoy building model cars and boats and other things when I'm not extracting teeth. This car has a real gasoline motor in it and has a good deal of power. You think you can handle it, Stuart? Certainly, replied Stuart, looking at the driver's seat and blowing the horn. But isn't this going to attract too much attention? Won't everyone stop and stare at such a small automobile? Well, they would if they could see you, replied Dr. Carey, but nobody will be able to see you or the car. Why not? Asked Stuart. Because this automobile is a thoroughly modern car. It is not only noiseless, but it's invisible. Nobody can see it. Well, I can see it, remarked Stuart. Push that little button, said the doctor, pointing to a button on the instrument panel. Stuart pushed the button, and instantly the car vanished from sight. Now push it again, said the doctor. Well, how can I push it if I can't see it? Asked Stuart. Feel around for it. So Stuart just felt around with his hand until it came in contact with the button. It seemed like the same button, so Stuart pushed it. He heard a slight little grinding noise, and he felt slip out from under his hand. Hey, watch out, yelled Dr. Carey. You pushed the starter button. She's off. There she goes. She's away. She's loose in the room. Now we're never going to catch her. He grabbed Stuart up and placed him on a table where he couldn't get hit by the runaway car. Oh, mercy, mercy, cried Stuart when he realized what he had done. It was a very awkward situation. Neither Dr. Carey nor Stuart could see the little automobile, and yet it was rushing all over the room with its own power, bumping into things. First came a crashing noise over by the fireplace. Okay, look, here's a picture of the little car. That'd be pretty cool to have a car that could be invisible too. The hearth broom fell. Dr. Carey leapt for the spot and pounced on the place that he thought the sound had come from, but even though he was quick, he hardly got his hands on the place when there was another crash over by the wastebasket. The doctor pounced again. Pounce, crash, pounce, crash. The doctor was racing all over the room, pouncing and missing. It was almost impossible to catch a speedy, invisible little automobile, even if one is a skillful dentist. Oh, yelled Stuart, jumping up and down. I'm so sorry, Dr. Carey. I'm dreadfully sorry. Get a butterfly net, shouted the doctor. I can't, said Stuart. I'm not big enough to carry a butterfly net. That's true, said Dr. Carey. I forgot. My apologies, Stuart. And there's the invisible car bumping into the trash can. And then there's Dr. Carey down on his hands and knees trying to catch it. The car's bound to stop sometime, said Stuart, because it'll run out of gas. That's true, too, said the doctor. So he and Stuart just sat down and waited patiently till they no longer heard any crashing sounds in the room. Then the doctor got down on his hands and knees and crawled cautiously all over, feeling here and there until at last he found the car. It was in the fireplace. buried up to its hubs in wood ashes. The doctor pressed the proper button, and there it stood again in plain sight, with its front fenders all crumpled, its radiator leaking, its headlights all broken, the windshield shattered, the right rear tire punctured, and quite a bit of yellow paint scratched off the hood. Why was it such a mess? Look at this picture. Oh, look at Stuart. He seems so upset. I guess that's what happens when a car gets crashes into a bunch of stuff. What a mess, groaned the doctor. Stuart, I hope this will be a lesson to you. Never push a button on an automobile unless you're sure what you're doing. Yes, sir, replied Stuart, and his eyes filled with tears, each tear being no smaller than a drop of dew. It had been a very unhappy morning, and Stuart was already homesick. He was sure he was never going to see Margalo again. Ooh, that was chapter 11. Tomorrow is chapter 12 called The Schoolroom. I wonder if he's going to find Margalo and what's going to happen now. I wonder if he's going to go back home now since all that happened. Guess we'll find out tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.